Hello, I'm Paul Hefner, the owner of Finance Pals, and today I'm going to be talking through ways to improve profits, particularly around looking at KPIs and goals to sort of help you measure your progress and hopefully drive improvements. I'm going to share my screen because I just typed up a blog post on this. I think it's easier to see it, so hopefully you guys can see my screen. So this is an example of some called KPIs like revenue, gross margin, and ultimately income and cash flow. But then also looking at some KPIs like admin percent or AR percent, or maybe gross margin is one of them, or growth percent, or whatever it is. And I'll get into this in a second, but I like it because this is an example where you can see, the cash flow was hugely negative, the admin percent was high, and the AR percent was high. As we started to improve the admin percent and the AR, well, I guess this went up this month, but it got a little better. And then as they both sort of went down, then there was a huge amount of sort of operating income, cash flow, all the stuff was improving as these metrics were sort of driving towards improvement. So, and obviously it makes sense if you have less out for collections, your operating cash flow goes up, and if you have less of your staff's time on admin percent, then the operating income goes up. So that's just an example. I might come back to this later, but wanted to start with that. So, I'm writing this. It's June 30th, right in the middle of summer. And especially in 2023, I'm just seeing this a lot where, there's the pandemic. Everybody was sort of struggling. There was all the PPP money coming in, so the businesses could sort of float. They hired a bunch of people. And then coming out of that, everybody's spending was crazy, and people were buying more and investing in growth, and everything was going great. And now, well, actually, the S&P closed today, I think, at a 1 year high. So maybe we're coming out of it, but maybe a few months ago we were down in the doldrums. People were talking about recession and sort of seeing where this is going to go. But even still, in the small business space, I'm still seeing a lot of business owners sort of being squeezed out. So they've raised prices a few times. Now their customers are starting to say no, or they're losing customers to raising prices, or they're not getting the same closing conversion ratios as they had in the past. Their staff, meanwhile, is saying, "Hey, it's inflation; things are going up." And as those things go up, they are, needing to pay their staff more, or they're having employee turnover, and all of that is leading towards, them sort of getting squeezed out of their profits. And that's sort of the main reason we're sort of writing this is, you can't necessarily raise pricing anymore, which is what was sort of a strategy in the past, or it's still a good strategy. But so it's sort of, what else can you do? So I'll start with this. The first step is looking at the constraints. So we have, the most famous one or common one is, staff. So especially right now with still unemployment being low, people can't hire the people they want. I still look at restaurants that are, closing for lunch because they can't hire people. I have just seen lots of examples where people aren't able to hire the people they need, and that is driving their ability to grow, or they're having to, pay their employees higher. And so if they can't have the staff, then that's a huge constraint. Sometimes it's equipment. It could be, manufacturing equipment. It could be operational equipment. Whatever it is, if you don't have the money for that equipment, or where your current capacity is sort of reached for that equipment, then that's the constraint. You need to figure out how to optimize that equipment. So you might be looking at ratios like downtime for the equipment, or utilization of the equipment, or things like that. Obviously, capital is another constraint. So maybe you're constrained by how much money you have in the bank, and there's obviously ways to pull some of these levers, like you can factor invoicing, you can take out loans, you can get investors. But maybe right now you're just constrained there. There might be seasonality where you have to pay staff when it's a slower time, so that impacts your profit, or you have busier times where you can't hire people, and it just where you are in the season. And sometimes it's just flat out, just for newer businesses or less developed businesses, it might be just getting those first customers, getting sales, or investing in those efforts. So whatever it is, understanding that sort of gets to the first piece of understanding the puzzle. And I guess knowing the trade-offs, so you can easily, I would say you can sort of choose between growth or profit, and so you have to sort of you can sort of have both, but ultimately if you're growing too fast, you're investing in the business and it's gonna hurt your profits, or if you're just choosing profits, it's going to you might make choices that are going to hurt your growth. So from all of that, you'll start developing some key performance indicators around those pieces of your business. So if it's something staff related, what's their billable hours per week, or revenue per day per worker? If it's equipment related, like equipment downtime, a staff one is like admin percent of time, which is an example above. You might be looking at your customers, like profit margin per customer, or maybe if you're looking at marketing spend, it's like your lifetime value, so how much that customer is worth to you versus the cost to acquire the customer. So you can start developing, all different metrics, and it could be, closing ratios, it could be, all different things based on what your business is. So once you sort of identify them, you start to track them, then hopefully you'll start to see some improvements or identify areas that are problems. So you might have sales staff that's underperforming. You might have staff that's has a lot of unbilled time. You might have customers that aren't profitable, or they're not paying, or all these different things. And these sort of are red flags for you to say, okay, how can we take this information now and start improving it? So I'll get to that in a second, but I think this is pretty common, but knowledge. But once you start measuring things, especially reporting on it, then it drives increased awareness of it, and then you can start to uncover sort of the areas to look for. I have some notes here. We usually do weekly or monthly tracking of these metrics. And then, this is where I say this is my favorite part here. So once you start to understand what the bad areas are, or something crazy that's going on in your business that you may or may not have been aware of, then that's when you sort of have that, aha moment or the light bulb moment that says, okay, well, if I would have known we were losing this money on these customers, we wouldn't have signed them up. Or if I, knew that our sales staff was doing this bad, I, would have fired them a long time ago, or whatever, or coached them to do better. Or it doesn't have to be firing clients or staff, but very well could be. But you're uncovering whatever it is, and you say, wow, this is shocking to learn that our business is sort of operating this way. And then you can start to make changes. So you can start to brainstorm some ideas. You can sort of list the pros and cons of those. And then ultimately you'll come up with sort of what I call rocks or planning goals. So this is some example of some rocks. This is for a company trying to improve staff and customer turnover, because they were trying to improve the profits through those sort of initiatives. So there was a mentor program. They could give better coaching to their staff, and that would hopefully make them see more value in staying. Antivirus software is one that's more of a long-term investment. It's not necessarily an immediate return on profit, but hopefully in the long term, it helps obviously with preventing potential bad things from happening, and also just is a good long-term investment. Getting surveys out to the customers and staff, and then also doing some improving quality. So looking at developing processes to check staff work, and creating clear guidelines around quality will reduce customer churn. So anyway, that's a lot of info. But I think the goal is, back to the beginning is, can you start tracking some of these key metrics? And then you come up with some sort of KPIs to track them. And then ultimately, can you come up with some goals to sort of drive improvement in those metrics? So thanks for watching, and have a great day.